I was thinking an interesting way to think about all of this would be like synaptic connection and the axons and the how the brain moves through its synaptic connection, and it's all very similar.
Continuing the March 27th edition of the Electric View, Buddy and Peter discuss the underpinnings of our universal field and the nature of the shapes and vortexes that may underlie our reality.
And so then I'm wondering the nodes where the matter aggregates in clusters, they would be fed all of the information from the axons or the dendrites. And if you could map the electric universe model to some sort of consciousness model, where like what we're doing with the circuitry of the earth and what Ito's doing and working on also with that, and discussions that we've had quite a bit having to do with electric circuitry. Because if you think about it, all information is flowing through these Birkeland currents, all of it, from this one star system to another star system. And their information has to be quantized or packeted inside of and along these these cylinders along the Markland convection areas. But I mean, because I'm really interested in the information flow. If you guys have any input on that.
That's what we're just. Go ahead.
No, this came up last time or the time before, and I just don't understand what kind of information you're talking about.
If you think of these as like we're able to visualize and see like a certain frequency, small frequency band of this pattern, But the frequency bands go all the way up, and it's like one of the problems that I think we have being myopic. It's like, well, this is the data we have, so now we know everything, and it's like there's more there for sure, So I would kind of harmonize with Buddy that there's very, very high frequency, all kinds of bands of frequencies that pass through these things. And particularly when you start looking at like Markland convection and the Farad instabilities, you see these high frequencies happen, and they happen in these kind of, very, very interesting 5-6 harmonic patterns. And anyway, I'm personally getting a lot out of this. You start looking at harmonies filtering down into these type of cymatic ideas, just to it's kind of echoing what Sheldrake's talking about with morphic resonance, but I'm certainly picking up on it as I look at this stuff.
Yes, it's fractal. It's a fractal scale of a larger brain mimicking a larger brain mimicking a larger brain mimicking, and then it goes down and up in these scales, and then the scale related
to frequency and time. So
yes, it's scale symmetry also. So we see collectively all of these symmetries on these dendritic type diffusion limited aggregation, electroflow, Lichtenberg flow style, electric lightning bolts. And these lightning bolts, these thunderbolts are streaming information themselves. I mean, for I guess it's through frequency, and see, because I according to the model that I'm working on, there is there is, okay, you can see all old starlight coming to our planet, right? You can see all this old starlight. All that old starlight has all the information of all of those stars that you're looking at it. The entirety of all of the information is whether those systems are dead, and the light is still going and impinging on the Earth. This zodiacal star, this zodiacal light that comes from the stars and rains down on us. I believe this is the key to understanding what I'm seeing and what I'm understanding about Birkeland currents. You take this light that's coming down. This is a way to prove it, and we unwind it and go inside of it, and all we have to do is figure out the type of machine or the type of lenses or antenna to take this zodiacal light, unwind it, and rewind it so we can experience it and see it and go inside of it's a Birkeland current. They're all flowing on Birkeland currents, and they're coming straight, impinging on us all the time, not only from a sun, but from the outer stars as well. So this information that we get is we are studying it as in all of the different band lengths and frequencies and radio waves and gamma rays, but this inside of this information is also the neural network of all living creatures on all of those systems and all of inside and hyper helically bound and wound together inside of this light structure. This sticky static light structure is this organism that we can find and get into, and that is the information inside of the Birkeland currents that I'm talking about.
Well, for instance, let's say that on a given star there was a planet and there was an advanced civilization and they had developed a certain kind of music. Then are you saying that from the light of that star we might conceivably reconstruct the music they were playing?
Yes, I think that very similar to Sheldrake's theory of morphic resonance, this morphic resonance is able to travel along these axial aligned field aligned currents, and it collapses on the rings where the double layers take place, and it flows faster than the speed of light. It goes superluminal and subluminal, and that's what makes some of them light and some of them dark, because when they're light they're going luminal, and when they're subluminal it's like matter. Subluminal Birkeland currents is like matter because it's slower than light, and then superluminal is like dark, the dark mode plasma, because it's going so fast. And when the information is helically bound and wound and rotating and moving through these currents, that's what makes it go faster than light is through these longitudinal waves. These longitudinal waves that rotate along the counter rotation of each one of these cylinders. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Interesting.
Because I've been studying this for quite a while, and my model is extremely predictive. And when I brought it to Donald Scott and asked Donald Scott to review it, I don't know if you've heard the answer, his direct answer from the review, but it matches his model and goes on to predict, or goes on to highlight and show off the intricate details that his model predicts. So my model highlights his predictions and goes on and predicts more. Like there's something called the blue world that was just discovered in the University of Maryland, and I know the blue world, that shape, to exist at the base of every single plasmoid. That's a claim that I can claim, and because of the predictive nature of the set.
What's this blue world that was discovered?
This blue whirl is the shape. Yes, is the shape that I propose is at the base of every single Birkeland current. According to my model, this is what's going on. And I was just peer reviewed and published last year mathematically because someone showed me that this matched. This was in my model, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So then I looked it up, and this is what happens when you condense a pillar of fire or a Birkeland current into a plasmoid. It makes this shape. So
Do
all
you have any images of that? Do you have any photos of that shows the similarity?
Right now.
Yes,
Yeah,
I have it on.
This is the blue world. This is the one that these are the photos made by the university of that blue world. But you said that there was a similarity with those currents. Do you have any photos that show the similarity in the shape?
Yes,
I've also been looking for similarities with this shape and other shapes. I have only found a few, but they're not 100% certain.
Yes, it's actually they're nested inside of each other and they're heterodyning. I went deep into the mathematics of this shape. I've been studying this shape for 14 years when they found this, and you can if you've been
studying it, then you've observed it before somewhere.
Yes. I can show you the images right away. If David could be so polite to
Thank you.
To go to let's see if you.
I'm also very very much interested in that shape because I'm also looking for similarities with that shape. It's a very interesting one.
Right. Richard, just so you know, this is Peter Venus. He's got the website Infinity Theory, and he studies vortices.
I always look at shapes.
Okay, thank you.
I try to categorize every type of shape, every type of movement in fluids, liquids, gases, and plasmas. So all the recognizable shapes that reoccur, I try to find similarities and connections between those shapes. That's what my website is about.
David, if you want to, if you could Google Buddy James, my paper should come up from Bridges Math. It might not. I forget if, or the Buddy James and the Doherty set. There it is. So this is the shape right here. And this is the base of all Birkeland currents, which is the flow that goes directly, that creates the toroidal fields of a sphere, of any spheroid, any planet. And there's the Birkeland currents that wrap around the field aligned currents. And you can see that it's conical.
Oh yeah, that also says the blue world, the text under the image.
Yes. So I cited.
Similarity.
Yes, I cited Donald Scott's work in there in the paper, yeah. But you can see that it's a network. I call it the There's a network of hierarchical nested opposing spiral vortices. So it's mated pairs of vortices that are creating a flow, a forward flow and a backward flow based off of that's the dielectric inertial plane that you're looking at down the center. So that very center axially aligned straight line Walter Russell would refer to as the fulcrum. What's his name? Theophoria apophasis would refer to that as the dielectric inertial plane. Ken Wheeler. But ultimately, all of everything of the constituents in the whole universe break down to this substance of one that is ether or plasma, then some sort of a field that pervades everything, sort of like a Higgs field, is kind of necessary almost. Is there a Higgs field in the model of the electric universe? If anyone knows?
I don't have the answer to that.
I do know that it is generally regarded that there must be, because there are properties of empty space.
Right. So the vacuum.
Well, we've had that debate before as what does that really mean? What is vacuum energy? Yada, yada, yada. But
right. 0 point energy and
all that stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So that's one image. There's plenty of more images of that shape nested inside of each other. So you hop up one layer to the next double layer, and you get another blue whirl. You can see it. It turns into the next one. It turns into it. There's 3 times that it turns into the next. They're like phase up and phase down capacitors or something, sort of, that like push the current upward and downward. But the dynamics of it is beyond me. I have no idea. I've just been doing a lot of kind of, I guess I can tell you a few more things that I understand about this shape. This shape is the shape of, I call it the blue flame, or I call it the flame of life. The flame of life is, it's what comes out of your mouth. It's what speaks life. But it's also what speaks death, because it's a double-edged flame, just as anything can be, anything is life or death. Yeah, that's a weird one. If you look at that, is that real or fake?
I have no idea.
Oh.
I would probably say fake, but
yeah, it was fake.
But it looks beautiful.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
I think it has something to do with the whole. Hey, this is what a black hole would look like on the horizon type picture. I think, but I don't know.
It's like the sun, experiencing the sun on Earth. Right?
DJ, if you go to, I tagged you a couple times in Facebook. If you go to those tags,
I don't know. How do I go to those?
You look in your recent unopened things.
I never use Facebook. I'm anti-Facebook.
Nope. It's the far one with the red buttons on it. The red. You've got mail. Far one to the right.
This one.
Yep, that one. And then look for Buddy tagged you. I tagged you 3 times. Yep, up in the top.
Okay. To learn.
And then go to the top. Yeah. You know what that is, right, guys? That right there is the primer fields. I think it's Laplace.
Yeah.
His name is God.
Lapointe.
Lapointe.
Yeah.
Lapointe.
So that's right.
Fan, but
well, he's not a fan of the EU, but anyway, it's right. Whatever he's doing is cool, and it needs explanation.
Oh no, it's I don't really I don't diss him because he's allowing us to do certain things at lower amperages, but the end problem is that there are no giant metal poles magnetic poles out in space. So, but there's but obviously the shape and stuff is very, very interesting to allow us to keep a lower amperage.
Right.
As opposed
I know.
to actually, like trying to make that, put so much current through that causes that shape to be more or less permanent would be a god-awful amount of amperage, if you get my meaning. So,
isn't this a Z-pinch? Isn't that a Z-pinch, though? Like this huge field that comes down and pinches a point, and it has to have this type of... It is a Z-pinch, right? A Birkeland current Z-pinch.
Oh, no.
It looks very similar to how...
It's like a
In the center.
plasmoid, right? I mean,
It's
it
not
feels
a-
like.
but a pinch is actually a magnetic constriction that causes, basically it will make a neutral point in the middle where it can't. But anyway, I'm not going to debate that. It's not. It is. I like some people going to see his work simply because it allows you to visualize certain things that you normally couldn't. And I find that to be very revealing to some. Like, for example, the ordering, when you start throwing spheres in between this and you begin to see how they will magnetically sort themselves. That's very interesting. Something that we see with rings of around 1987A, that type of thing. So I think this is good. I try not to bash him, because otherwise you wouldn't see this at all experimentally. But it's a reification problem that I have. Like, you're like, okay, well, you're thinking these are real. Let's just be honest, they're not really there. But at the same time, if you increase the current, you could get these pinches, or these bowl-like shapes that are coming down to certain areas, which we see heading towards the sun and so forth. So. Anyway, that's nitpicky-ish. So please go on.
If you have Facebook open in a minute here, whenever you get to it, check another one of the ones that I tagged you in, and there it is.
Oh, this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, boy, sundog right there in the center of the geometry. Perfect. I don't even have to. I trace the lines. I trace every single line of the. This is a grid. The Doherty set is a grid. It's a master grid for a universe of induction, and it's showing everything to be based on helical induction. And Donald Scott stamp of approval right on the front of it. I'm writing a book. Well, I'm almost done with the book. That's going to be delivered to whatever the universe this year. But that's going to be in it.
A lot like your blue world. Yeah, I seen a sundog before. I just didn't see the similarity. I just didn't notice it.
Yeah, shape power is
shape
honestly
is the same.
Yeah.
Well,
what the electric universe has done is capitalized on shape power like a mofo. I mean, if you look at the dancing guy, the stick man or whatever, what do they call them? The Peratt instabilities. They almost, it's just iconic for them in the symbolism to show that shape power. Now, when you harmonize shape power with predictive power and the power of symmetry and symmetry sets and scale symmetry, and you start getting down to the nitty-gritty of what these filaments are. What is this geometrical structure of these crystalline filaments of Birkeland currents? There's a quantum geometry to it. There's a quantum space-time, and I use the word quantum because I'm saying small. Quanta, individual units, tiny little geometry of space packing. And this is what Terrence Howard and I are into, along with Michael Evans, in describing these fundamental particles are actual conjugations, wave conjugations. And these wave conjugations are moving through these Birkeland currents as well. Moving consciousness and thoughts, marrying thoughts with consciousness and space, including space, along these Birkeland currents. And I just go on and on and on and on. One thing after another keeps coming out of this Doherty set. The diocatron instabilities, which is what you're looking at, which is just, it's chocked full. Everything that I hold the Doherty set up to, it just shows off the image right away. I keep finding these really strange occultic images that, like, people are like, what the heck is that? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just an image I found in the Doherty set. And they're like, dude, that's the blah, blah, blah. Like, Heather tells me all this different stuff. Like, it looks like different languages, and Heather and I find animals in it. I mean, all of the biological bodies, because your body has to be a certain shape in order to have animate life inside of it.
That's where you start seeing these proportions, and those proportions are within an octave. And this is where it's right under our nose, as usual, hiding in plain sight. It's just that's not, that area just doesn't get perused as suddenly we have a big focus on now. So. Yeah, I mean, Jim, you one of the things that might be nice is like kind of like you're looking at a lot of this stuff where you're seeing the large scale and the small scale, and like how you're looking at things.
As far as which particular,
as far as like seeing in the like kind of the galactic scale things down on the micro scale. So with filaments and this was one of the things that both Juan and you were kind of looking at, right?
Yeah, well, like all that, the way Birkeland currents work at all scales, and then you get the objects traveling in them, and the what was the question?
Yeah, no, just like one of the things that you're like the thing that's kind of driving your inspiration for future study, etc.
Well, yeah, it is. I mean I believe it keeps repeating over and over on scales, and that what we're going to find is like atoms that can be explained the same way with as being in even tinier Birkeland currents made up of. I mean that's going to answer a lot of problems with this communication between atoms, where the atoms, the nuclear particles themselves can't travel at above light speeds, but the connections can be, and you get that from the solar system scale. Like obviously the sun and planets do travel along filaments in space, we know that, but they're connected at an even smaller scale by plasma, which travels radically faster up and down those same filaments, and that's the same thing that's going to be happening at the even smaller scale, where we think things are disconnected because we can't see the smaller scale and even higher speed connections between those.
It's a good thing that we can scale. Plasma is scalable, and I think that's one of the tenets that allow us to understand the entanglement and entrainment inside of the larger system, because we can scale the huge astronomical data into a lab and test it in a lab, which shows that as above, so below, and within is without. And that's really cool. But real quick, entrainment. I heard the definition of entrainment as basically sympathetic vibratory waves. Entrainment is when you pluck a string on one guitar, and all of a sudden the other guitar that's standing there, all of the strings will be in tune with it. That's called entrainment. So what we have is a large scale, micro macro scale entrainment is what's going on. Because they're all intertwined, so there has to be some sort of an entrainment to it, and then you have ensoulment inside of this entrainment.
Well, they'll ring at the harmonics, and this is why you start getting all those fundamental, the ancient what's the right word for it that we've been playing around with. The sacred geometries start coming out of that really fast, because you've got the 7 chakras, et cetera, shows up pretty quickly here. But those are all about harmonic relationships and how things ring. So like you can ring something up, 500 times the frequency, and then have something ring way down, a ring down. That's kind of a standard sympathetic resonance type of thing. So this is where it starts coming together from just total mysticism to kind of heterodyning double E stuff, which is interesting.
Well, I can't stress enough. The guy's model, Vladimir Ginsburg, he has a model called the superstring theory that shows that everything is what he calls helicula, which is helices inside of helices inside of helices, and that's what the network is. And it makes perfect sense according to Donald Scott's model and my model. I don't want to call it my model, but the model I was blessed to share.
Well, there is just starting to study Birkeland currents and the relationship between them, you can notice that the length of one of the spirals versus the diameter of the spiral is about 1.61 to 1. So I'm starting to see that golden ratio, so to speak, directly now as I started looking for it, because this is something that we're very interested in seeing why this is something that we consider beautiful. I'm very interested in this.
That's the interesting. I mean, the thing that starts coming out of it is
obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's Euler's. Scales. Yes, that is Euler's. That is the exponential. The grid of the Doherty set is the exponential. It is the exponential field. So if there is a field that is associated with everything, like a Higgs field, an all-pervasive field that's in all of space, it would be what they call the cosmological constant. The cosmological constant is, as far as I understand, similar to growth and the exponential. And then you add to it, you got to remember that the entire thing, every grid that you have that has to map out anything electromechanical, has to be based off of the inverse square law. So there's a harmonic relationship between the inverse square law, the golden ratio, and spherical pressure coordinates of the Doherty set as they radiate outward. And there's definitely a harmony between Euler's number, the exponential, the scale invariance of life. All of our senses, all of the detectors of all of our senses detect everything in reality based off of a logarithmic scale invariance. They logarithmically collect the information in a scale invariant manner. Now, this is directly due to our perception of a logarithmic scale reality. Our reality is logarithmically scale invariant, and we detect that directly with our senses that are telling us that it's logarithmically scale invariant. So any system that's trying to model the universe has to have the harmony with the marriage of pi and phi. It has to be logarithmically scale invariant, and it has to allow for the inverse square law, because that's what all of gravity, electromagnetism, and light and smells, anything really, that's how they gravitate from a point source, any point source. These are pretty pictures you're showing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this guy does that. I mean, it's all about pi and phi and linking them together. So that might be something you may be interested in checking out.
Ooh, who's this? What's his name?
I don't know. It's not that, it's kind of like old school, kind of scrunched up website, but he's certainly got a lot of information on that. I think it's a guy, Valery Shurkin. I think he's Russian, but very very interesting.
Let's get him on the show.
So. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It looks like he may have done this back. It's got that 2004 look to it. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, but he's doing what you're talking about. and it's very interesting. And he's got this type of the ties between the torus and the sphere, etc. So,
ooh, great math. Thank you. That's a great spot to look.
Yep. So I mean, this was one of his things. This little.
Can I say one thing about the Sundog?
Sure. Yeah.
Can we switch to my screen?
Yeah, please. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Can you see my screen?
We can.
Okay. Now this is what we were looking at. This is the Sundog, right? So you see this sphere, and here you have that shape that also looks like the blue world. It has the same shape, so it's like a cone with a logarithmic curve here, and the underside is just a bit round. So yeah, it does look a lot like the blue world, that shape, but it's on top of a sphere.
Yes, it's the base, and it's going into that next sphere.
If you look at the sun's corona, you see the same thing. Well, almost a little bit different. See also a sphere. Here also the cone, but now you don't see the rounded lower part, because it just touches the outer side, and here it's almost like, well, there could be a round part underneath, but the might or the might not be. But here it goes all the way in. So that's the only difference in shape, and the difference in shape is that here you see the lines going in the direction of the axis of the cone, and here with the blue world you don't see that. But the corona, this is part of the corona, and the corona is actually made of different two different shape types. There's this shape at the poles of the corona, and this shape, which are two different types, two different vortex types. And well, here I mentioned the blue whirl here because the blue whirl looks a lot like this shape, but it's not completely the same. So there's a bit of a doubt. I think the shape is related to the shape of the corona. Now it becomes more evident. Now that I've seen this shape, I hadn't seen this connection yet. But now it's more evident that there is a connection between those shapes, but it's still not quite the same shape. It's a different.
I always see when I look
of the same shape.
When I look at that, when I see it's like you're looking at the inside of a toroid and that's the sun as the center, axis of the toroid. But go ahead. That's just me.
Yeah, the charge goes right through it.
But there's clearly a connection between this shape, a sphere with this type of cone on top of it, and the sun's corona in relation to the sun. And it's almost the same vortex types, almost the same shape classification, but it's a different stage of that shape probably. It's still not exactly the same, but almost the same. But there is a strong relation between these shapes. So now I'm getting closer to knowing definitely what kind of vortex shape it is. So